David Burnett, welcome to 10-6 Life Factors. I do appreciate you taking your time out to do this. You are a coach, a recruiter of athletes, and I'm going to allow you to introduce exactly the type of program that you're seeking athletes from, and also the name of the college and just the whole process of the recruitment, so that families and high school students, or even students that are probably in their first or second year of college would be interested, can learn about it. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes. So tell us a little about you, David, in terms of how you get started in the coaching business and your current placement and all the good things that happen in between.
Right. Yeah. So I've been coaching for about 16 years now, and at various levels. So started my career at the Division I level, and I spent about 12 years at the Division I level, 11 years, and then I was 4 years at a Division II university. And along the way, have been fortunate to have opportunities to move around to some different places across the country and get some very good experience with not having a lot of resources and having pretty decent resources, mostly at mid-major type universities. I've also worked with youth athletes, so 5 years old on up to high school athlete, as well as master's athletes or athletes that have exhausted their eligibility and they just still want to live a healthy life. Maybe they're aspiring to do a master's competition, or maybe they're training for the Olympics. So I've had a couple Olympic level athletes that I've trained that have made it to the Olympics. The theme has still been the same though, and that's development. Throughout the process, everyone wants to be good. They want to be great, but there's a process that you have to go through to mature through that, right? And so no matter if that athlete's been a youth or Olympic, I've treated them the same in that they have goals that they want to achieve, and I'm the conduit to try to help them achieve their goals and exceed their goals. So so now it's led me to this opportunity at Iowa Western Community College. It's one of the top junior colleges in the country. And it's an outstanding program. We have very nice facilities. We have a team of a staff of coaches from jumps, throws, distance, and sprints to build a championship level program. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to help student athletes that want to come to a 2-year college, get their associate's degree, and then move on to another university or college and finish out their 2 years.
Let me ask you some questions before you get into that. First, you said that you've been coaching for about 16 years or so. You yourself, you were an athlete.
Yes.
Yourself, and you've competed. What was you may have said it, but what was your competitive sport that you were in?
So I did track and field. I did the 100, 200, and the 400, but mostly the 200 and 400 in college. Okay. And I went to the University of Texas, San Antonio.
And then you also said you were all over. Is it in terms of competing, or you meant in terms of recruitment?
In terms of recruitment and in terms of the universities that I've worked at. So I've worked at a school in Washington. I've worked at 3 universities in Texas, and now this one in Iowa.
Okay. And you also said something about athletes have exhausted their exhausted their position, their
their eligibility. Their eligibility.
What does that mean?
So there's at the NCAA level, there's a running clock. You have 5 years to get 4 years of eligibility in. So once you graduate high school, you essentially can take a gap year. So you maybe take off. Some people get a job and they work to try
Right.
to help to fund school, or they start the school right away. And Lord forbid, if there's an injury or something, they can take 1 year off, but then they will still have 4 years of eligibility. And so at the junior college level, it's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
We sometimes will get athletes that are 23, 24, 25, 30 years old.
Oh, wow.
They may have never started college. And they
Mm-hmm.
contact me and they say, Coach, I want to go to college. And we say, well, you still have eligibility because you never started. So the clock is a lot different. But then on the back end, it's harder for them to get into an NCAA school
Mm-hmm.
because of their age.
But at least they do get some type of there's a competing events at the
Right.
at that level. Yes.
Yes.
What
Yes.
are
They can
Go
say
ahead.
again.
I think that is so fabulous. It's almost, imagine not being able to do this at a 4-year college, but at the same time, you can compete up to even, as you said, age 30. You can get the chance to at least realize your dream at that level. Isn't that wonderful?
Right. Oh, it's fabulous. And of course, there are obstacles that and variables that come with that. Maybe
Okay.
it's durability of an athlete if they are able to sustain the collegiate season, or if they might have wanted to start a family. Now they have children involved,
Right.
and so there's those variables to navigate.
And so in terms of navigating those variables though, how doable is it? Say all else is in place, the person, say a 28-year-old mom, but she's able to, have babies, a babysitter, a family support and all those things. How, what would you say to someone who is in that age range and said, you know what, that's such a great idea, maybe you could do it? What would you say to them?
Well, my job is to provide answers to problems, but
Mm-hmm.
then also ask questions. Okay. And so we want to see what are the variables preventing this individual from being successful and help them to find solutions to that said variable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in this situation, it might be they have a child. How can we help to provide community so that way, this individual can have a successful academic experience and athletic experience, and
Mm-hmm.
not just focus on the fact that, okay, they have a child, it's going to be this burden, they're not going to be able to
Right.
do what they want to do or what we need them to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I said, so that's that solution part, but I ask questions of, okay, how can I support you? What can I do to make your schedule a little bit more friendly to that kind of an environment, to where you might have to drop your child off at daycare
Mm-hmm.
and now you have practice and we have to get done at a certain time before the daycare closes. That way you can pick your child up from daycare. And then when are you going to study? Because now you have this child at home that might be a quote unquote distraction to your studies. So we try to set up their schedule in a way that it would be conducive to a positive learning experience, and lessen the distractions, because it doesn't matter what level you're at.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have distractions. You're going to have adversity that you need to overcome.
Definitely. Let me ask you about the community college that you worked at, and in terms of this recruitment. What's the population like, the student population?
So we're right around 4,000 students. So it's a very intimate environment. We've got, a teacher to student ratio of about 18 to 1 teacher. So you can definitely have that one-on-one interaction with your professor and feel like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
they know my name, they know who I am and what my goals are, and they're here to help me. So Council Bluffs is where the city where Iowa Western is located. It's
Mm-hmm.
about 15 miles from Omaha, Nebraska, which the metropolitan area is about 500,000. So there's a lot to do, and opportunities, for job and things like that after that university setting. But it's also nice because we're away from a lot of distractions at the same time
Okay.
that you wouldn't have to worry about being in a very large metropolitan or in the heart of a metropolitan.
So, and the demographics, you mentioned the neighboring states. So what's the demographic at your college?
So it's largely Caucasian. It's majority Caucasian, and then the minority, of course, is Black and Hispanic. It's a small community in terms of Black, and most of the student athletes at our college make up that minority at Iowa Western. But for me, in terms of feeling like I'm out on a ledge, I haven't spent much time there yet. But when I walk around campus, there doesn't feel like there's that divide of, oh, I know everyone that's Black that works here. It's not like that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't feel as if there's a divide, basically, you're saying.
Right. No. And we get student athletes from all over the world. We have from Kenya, Nigeria. We have 13 athletes from Jamaica currently in our roster. So we've found a way to make their transition conducive to being successful, and not have them feel like, oh my gosh, I just got dropped off in the middle of the cornfields and there's nothing here.
Right.
They feel like they can be successful.
So in terms of is a college a commuter or a commuter school, or college, or a boarding, or you have, accommodations where you can board on campus?
Yeah, we have the dormitories where they can stay on campus. This large percentage, almost 95% of our student athletes live in the dorms.
Wow.
They eat there and everything. It's a pretty nice setup where they are in a suite with 3 other student athletes on the track team. And so they're going through the same successes and struggles, right? And they can commiserate, or they can or they can come together and say, hey,
Right.
how can we help one another? But then it's really nice. It's really nice, since that's a stone's throw away from the dining hall where you eat. And then just adjacent to that is the actual physical campus where all their classes are and things like that.
So now get into that recruitment process. I know you said that you your students coming from all over the globe. Is it a team, a body of recruiters from the college that would visit athletic championships, events around to these different countries, or you'd have ed hunters from these specific countries contacting you and say, I have an athlete, tell us how that works?
So it's a mixture of both. We have 4 coaches on staff, and each one of us not only recruits for our own event area that we specifically coach, but also keeps an eye on talent in other event areas. So for instance, myself, I coach our sprinters, hurdlers, and our relays. And so everything from the 800 meters on down. But I'll get correspondence for our jumpers or throwers or distance runners, and I will be able to vet those individuals before sending it to each individual event coach to save the time. It might be somebody that might be outside of the range of qualification that we're looking for. But what I try and do is give that person a benchmark and say, hey, this is the mark that we are looking for. You're outside of that mark, keep working. Instead of just ignoring them, and some people don't respond because that's not helping the individual. As a teacher and as an educator, part of my job is to educate and let them know what the process is,
Right.
Of sending a video, getting me their transcripts, making sure that their social media is clean. there's so many things that go into it, because this may not be a job, but at some point they will have a job. And I don't want anything, maybe it's a post they made that just flippantly made, comes back to bite them in the butt later on when an employer is sifting through their social media.
So let's give an example. Say, you know, for example, Jamaican students, they are, you know, interested in, you know, being recruited abroad for, you know, to be in the track and field. And so the coach at the school in Jamaica would reach out, or you'd reach out. Where do you advertise? And, you know, can you make it clear so that if a family who have no connection whatsoever, but they are interested and say, okay, that's an idea, or come nobody, you know, ever mentioned this to me, what should they do to get a hold of you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, I've gone to champs in the past and recruited at champs. It's the best track meet in the world, in my opinion, because the atmosphere is electric. There's kids that you'll find are the fifth best on their team, would be the best in America on several teams. But those people, they don't get looked at sometimes because they're not the Tina Clayton or you know, the Sharika Jackson, you know, these stars, right?
Right.
And so a lot of it is being proactive. And what I mean by that is reaching out to us coaches, because we don't know them, and reaching out with their contact information, whether it be a WhatsApp number that we can reach them on, an email, a cell phone number, and their grades, you know, through all of the forms. So that way we can see and evaluate their academic marks, because we want to make sure that we're setting people up for success when they come. They may not know that there are going to be a pretty strenuous schedule that they're going to have to go through.
Okay.
So by contacting them initially and telling them, hey, I'm interested, you're interested in me, but I'm interested in you. Right. You're a 10-3 sprinter, and I get a video and I see that, you know, the block starts, or they can use work, their technique is really rough. I will tell that individual that, and I say, hey, I saw the video that you watched, that you sent me. I watched your video. Here are 2 or 3 things that you can work on. And I am also very interested in recruiting you to our university. Do these things, apply, send me your transcripts, and we'll be able to be on our way to getting you into our school.
And so the parents of these athletes, whether Jamaica or, you know, Kenya or, you know, one of those countries that they're coming from, probably would ask you about financial support. How does that work?
Right. So, and I want to be clear on this one, is that we as coaches and I as a head coach want to have communication with both parties initially, the student athlete as well as the guardian or the parent. And then eventually it needs to be more of the coach and the student athlete. Because at the end of the day, the student athlete is going to be the one going through the exams, going through the practices, and so on and so forth. And they need to communicate the correspondence that we're having, coach the athlete, with the parent. And so that way there's this triangulation that's taking place, but it's not from me to the parent, to the athlete. It's the athlete to the coach, to the parent. And so we stay on board because they're still in the parent's household.
Right.
And so as much as that triangulation can continue to take place, we as coaches stay on board. So as far as financials, we offer, you know, scholarships that we can pay for their entirety of their athletic and academics when they come here. It's subjective. So what I mean by that is it's based on their marks, right? So if an athlete can come in and they can score top 8 at the junior college national championships, and they can where they can win or something like that, then we're going to be able to give them a larger percentage of aid versus somebody that maybe they're outside of that range, but they can develop. The aid is going to be, it's still going to be a good amount, but it's not going to be as much. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I do is I use averages. I use a 5-year average of the junior college national championship and say, okay, historically you can get top 8. This is what the statistics say. So
Right.
now I can award you aid versus saying, well, this year the mark is fast, and just going off of that because there are ebbs and flows to every event in track and field.
Good. And so what sounds to me, this description or this process may be for the traditional students. What about the non-traditional students, those age group that falls out of that range that, now they're the adults, and yes, they have the established families. Is it part of your recruitment to bring in adult athletes from overseas, or you probably focus within the US?
No, yeah, we've like I said, our international recruitment is very important to the demographic of our
Mm-hmm.
team, and the success of our team. So we get a lot of those, like you said, non-traditional students that may be 24 or 26 years old,
Right.
and they never started school, and or they never had the coaching, so their marks are decent, but they're not that full scholarship type.
Okay.
We will offer them aid, and it's kind of taking a chance to see, okay, will this person work out? Um, and so you just have to use your best judgment in our guts of getting as much information as we can from whether it's a coach or a mentor or somebody that works with these individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we don't want is, we get somebody from Kenya, just a random example, and they get here and they're just not used to what we're asking them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Is to go to class, to be on time, all of the things that they'll have to do.
Mm-hmm. And so, okay, in terms, you mentioned that it's a dormitory style atmosphere on
Yes.
campus. So a family, sending off their 18, just graduated high school student to your college would say, well, I mean, is my student going to be bored with an adult, an older adult, 18, 26, 18, 28? Is that the case, or there's different accommodations?
Normally those non-traditional students, they will still live in the dorm because it's cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
versus living off campus, and it's just more convenient. There's less that you have to think about in terms of, if I need to do laundry, you can do it for free at the dormitory. Whereas if you live in an off-campus apartment, it might be a coin system where you have to pay per load, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And then things like food, the dining hall is there, and I'm also a certified sports nutritionist, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly sending out information on how to eat healthy for performance versus eating healthy to be full.
Mm-hmm.
Because the normal population, they're going to pile their plate with 6 eggs, 8 pieces of bacon, and so on and so forth. Whereas that student athlete, that can hinder their performance if they eat like that on a daily basis.
Right.
So now, to answer your question, it it's a toss up. It really is. When you get somebody that's that non-traditional student, we ask them those questions. Hey, that you're going to be on a team with 17 to 19-year-olds. That'll be the large majority. Is this okay with you? They're going to be immature. They're going to say, silly things. They're going to do silly things.
Right.
We don't want you to get lost in having to feel like you're playing dad or mom. That's not
Right.
even our job. I'm
Right.
not dad or mom to them. I'm a mentor figure or a father figure, but I'm not their dad.
Mm-hmm.
But we try to tell them, don't try to be that. Just be you, and know that you're coming here for very specific reasons. And let's get through and answer those hard questions before you come, because like I said, we don't want them to get dropped off in the middle of Iowa and say, "Oh my gosh, Lord of mercy, they didn't tell me," So it's like we we want to make sure that
Right.
that they know, and they're not cussing us out on the back end saying nobody told us.
Right, right. So in terms of, say, bringing families from students from overseas, do you find those non-traditional students that will ask, probably based on their F1 visa, because I'm thinking that's a visa that is processed for them, that they can bring a
Yes.
spouse with them, that they can bring over their spouse and and a child or someone with them? How often do you get that request?
Oh, to be honest with you, I have never, in the time that I've been coaching,
Okay.
had that request. And it's normally, this individual is coming on a student visa, and if we can't, and so there's a process that we have
Mhm.
to start very early to get them through the embassy. And some countries are much harder than others. Our distance coach tried to get several student athletes through the embassy and from Africa, and just could not. Whereas maybe another individual that was going to another community college, they were able to get them through, and it was from another country. So we tried to start the process as quickly as possible. I'm already working on student athletes to come for the mid-year term, to come in January to start. And we're working on them now and saying, hey, let's ask the hard questions. Let me give you those answers,
Mhm.
so that way we can see if this is something that you want to do. And we need to get an appointment with the embassy. You need to start your application process immediately, because again, Jamaica might be easier than a Kenya or another country.
Yes. And so, do you find that, say, for example, you approach a student, say you're a champs, then the athletic championship in Jamaica, and you observe a student that is doing so well, as you said, you don't always look at the first and second, runner-ups. You look at maybe third and fourth place, and say this student is currently, they're in their high school, they're 17, 16, 17, they have a few more years to finish. Um, do you have students who say that, no, I'd like to, leave my high school now to see if I can get into college there? Or you say, no, you have to have your high school diploma before we can even consider you?
Yeah, you have to have your diploma, because then you have to go for 2 years at the junior college in
Mhm.
order to go to the NCAA level if you are not a qualifier. So if
Right.
you did not meet the initial NCAA requirements,
Mhm.
um, but most of the time, that's what we run into is, this is a high school graduate, or this is somebody that's in their last form and now they want to come over. But I do sometimes get the younger 13, 14-year-old that may not be there yet, but they're just putting their name on our radar. Coach, look out for me in 1 to 2 years. I'm letting you know I'm interested. What do I need to do to improve, either athletically or academically, in order to get into your college?
Okay. Very, very, very good. So now they're in college. You get through the recruitment process. You said you're working on next January. And I can imagine that. Yes, the preparation and the process to get them here. So now they're here, they're on campus at your college. And there's a set of expectations, as you said, the schedule for training, the schedule also to compete in the what is the type of programs that your athletes compete in, by the way?
So it's the main one is just going to be the junior college national championship. That's like the pinnacle for us. But there are meets all throughout the season. They'll have, maybe 6 indoor, 8 or 9 outdoor
Mhm.
uh, track and field meets, and then they will have qualified hopefully for the junior college national championship. But then also, say we have a Jamaican student athlete that wants to go back for the Jamaican junior senior championships.
Mhm.
So we will try to go with them, because we don't want to now just say, hey, okay, good luck. You've been with us all year, and now just good luck. We'll try and go with them to continue at least at that championship meet, coach them, and maybe they make a world championship team or Olympic team. We'll continue to coach them through that process along with the coaches for the country team. So it's one of those things that not every athlete will compete at every single meet. We might have some that set out one or two just so that way they can train, because the competition does take a lot out of you. And we want to keep them healthy throughout their time here.
So do Iowa compete at the Penn relays?
So it depends. In the past, they've taken athletes to Penn relays, Drake relays, Texas relays, some of those bigger invitational meets. We try to do what's best for the individuals and as a team as well, because we look at our budgets and say, okay, well, if we take these 4 or 5 and say I'm the head coach and the event coach, and I just take a relay, what are my other 50 athletes in my event group? What are they doing? And who's coaching them? So, but at the same time, the exposure and the electricity that's at that meet is very high, and they might be able to get recruited by an LSU or a University of Houston or some of those other historic programs that go to that meet. So it's a meet that I have on the schedule, and we try to make it happen, because we also know that maybe their parents will come. They'll come from Jamaica, or they have they have relatives that live on the East Coast that come out. So those are things that we consider, and we do fundraising as well, to help to make those opportunities possible.
So let's get back to expectations on campus. So, the recruitment process is complete now. They're on campus, and, they have to go to school classes. What,
Yes.
how is it? How would you describe to, say, a potential applicant that, in terms of just the other curriculum activities, or academic activities that are expected in terms of grade? Is it where if your GPA is below 3, then you may have to bench out for the season, or you're actually expelled from the program, those type of things? And if that does happen, what are some of the regimen put in place to make sure that the student can succeed somewhere?
That's a great question. Throughout my coaching career, I have worked with what we call the at-risk student athletes. So maybe that student athlete that is right on the cusp of being ineligible. We've identified something in their history that could potentially lead to an academic problem. Maybe they struggle with math or reading comprehension. Maybe they just have attention issues. So what I do is sit down with those individuals from the get-go, and we've already done our first grade check. We've been in school for 3 weeks, and we've had our first grade check, and I'm transparent. There's some really good and some not good. Those that are not good, we ask why. What is the issue? Is it that you need a tutor for these classes? Because it's really easy to come down on them, and come down on them hard and say, oh, you're going to get kicked off the team. You're going back to Jamaica and all those things, the scare tactic. That doesn't work. That doesn't work for this generation. I don't think it works in general. And that's a very absolute statement, but I say it strongly and I hold to it. So again, I'm an educator and a conduit to help them. So I say, okay, what are we struggling with? Maybe our benchmark is you have to have above a 2.2, because if you're below a 2.2, you're not going to be able to go to that next university or college.
Right.
And so we have to graduate you within those, 4 to 5 semesters. And if we don't, then now we have to have you go to another junior college and hope that they can graduate. And then we could potentially lose funding if we're not graduating people in a timely manner.
Right.
So we try to help them. If for some reason it's not working out, they get to the end where they exhaust their eligibility with us. We'll try to send them to another junior college to finish out in hopes of, helping that person be successful down the road.
Right.
But yeah, we have tutors. We have a study hall that they have an hour every Tuesday and Thursday. They go to study hall for an hour. I'm all for need-based. So if you're under a 3.0, I think that it's a need for you to go to study hall. And then when you show me that your grades are good enough to get out of study hall after that first semester, then now we just do a grade check and we ask questions and see how things are going. If everything's going good, we just keep checking up. If things are going bad, we put you back in study hall. But in study hall, I say need-based is let's make sure that you are doing something. You're not just there, just punching the clock and then you leave. Make sure that you once you do your work, if you're done, leave. I don't want you to just sit there to just maybe be a distraction for another student athlete or just on the computer. Go home and be productive, get something else done is how we treat it.
Sounds good. So I imagine then that the job of a coach, I know it sounds really fabulous, saying, well, I'm a recruiter, I'm a coach of athletes, but it sounds very, very rigorous, very tough. Because as I said, it's not so much that you're doing this, you're also as a mentor to these students as well. And you have to be looking out at the full circle in terms of your academic area, the performance on the team, and also their health, right? So all these areas are into place. And so that brings a question then, your success rate within your cohort, within your group. You have a group of athletes that you recruit, you're keeping your eyes on them. They're your guys or your team. What generally would you say your success rate is or are in terms of transferring to getting them transferred to another university and continuing the path of being professional athletes?
Yeah, it's very good. I can speak for the past and I can speak for myself at other universities too. So historically, Iowa Western they've won national championships. They've had athletes matriculate on to really good universities, the Power Five, we call them Power Five universities. And so there are several that don't make it. There are several that don't make it at the same time. And in full transparency, maybe they just couldn't get it. They didn't understand what was being asked of them. And at some point, they had to make a decision or the previous staff had to make a decision. Now, me as a coach at other universities, it's been the same situation. I might have recruited a student athlete from Jamaica or from the United States, and they just couldn't get it. They were only there for a semester, or they were only there for 1 or 2 years. They didn't finish out. I don't have a specific statistic, but I would say over the years, if you had to put a statistic on it, I would say probably 70% or so actually finished their 4 years. And that other 30% are the athletes that I mentioned, the student athletes that I mentioned, that they, for whatever reason, it was too hard for them, or we couldn't see eye to eye. And that's something that we have to take into consideration, is that everybody's upbringing is different. And so some have both mom and dad in the picture, some only have one, some have none. And so we try to treat them the same but different, right? Get their background and see, where are you coming from? What are the struggles that you're going to have? But different in the fact that I have to be able to empathize with that person that I might be the only father figure that they've had in 18 years. And I might be the toughest father figure that they've had because mom has given them everything, or
Right.
mom has given them everything that she's had.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to and it's hard. You get caught up as a coach because you want to win and you want to be successful, but we have to take a step back as fathers, right, and say, how can I help this individual to walk out of these doors in 2 years and have learned, so that way when they take that next step to a university, they're ready, and then when they graduate from that, they are ready for life because they've been in school, they've been in life, they've had highs and lows, and now they're ready to be successful.
Right. So it sounds like culture, the mix, culture is an interplay in all of this. And
Yes.
so, I know you mentioned that they have tutoring on campus, but do they have like an international student club, for example, or counselor that is understand diversity, understand that they can counsel students regardless of their cultural background so that um, the students themselves feel situated or have a sense of belonging on campus? What is that like at your college? And is there a team or, describe that for us?
Yeah. So we have a lady in the admissions office who her job is specifically to deal with our international student athletes, and she walks them through the process, not just through the admissions process, but once they get on campus, checking up to make sure that everything is going okay with them. But I don't know of this if there are specific maybe African uh, um, student organization,
Right.
or those sorts of things. I haven't found those things quite yet,
Mhm.
since I'm new to the university, to be honest with you. But our team ends up being that family. At every university that I've worked at, um, it's really hard to be in a fraternity or sorority and be a track athlete, or be in, yeah, like, you know, Black student athletes of XYZ university
Right.
and be on the team. It's you wear a lot of hats, and it
Mhm.
pulls your time and your management of your time. And so the track team ends up being that family because we have so many international students,
Right.
and the coaches end up being the they wear those different hats,
Right.
and of course we have individuals, whether it be for mental health or strength and conditioning or athletic training, they help in their profession because
Mhm.
they're the professional, but sometimes we are the go-between
Mhm.
to help with those individuals.
So you're recruiting from, for example, I know we're focusing on Jamaica. Is there any other Caribbean countries that's, student population represent?
All of them. We have athletes from the Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago. We've had athletes from there as well, and so we don't shy away from any student athlete in the world. I mean, just yesterday alone, I was contacted by an athlete from South Africa. I
Mhm.
was contacted by Kenya, Nigeria, Jamaica. I mean, in one day, just from that one tweet. And so,
That's
you know, we
wonderful.
we just we just say, hey, we have an opportunity. Is it what's right for you? And we
Mhm.
go from there.
And you go.
And we're pretty upfront as well with the student athletes, and we don't. I'm not going to lead somebody on and say, oh yeah, yeah, we want you, and then
Right.
yeah, we want you to come, but for free. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell them, hey, we want you. This is how much we can pay for your schooling. Can you make this happen? If you can't,
Right.
hey, you know, this school I know has an opportunity for you. Are you interested? I'll call the coach for you. You have to be able to pay it forward. In what we're doing, I'm about advancing the individual and our sport. At
Right.
some at some point, there's going to be another Usain Bolt. We don't know right now, and that's a far-fetched statement, but we don't know right now. But there's somebody out there that's training to be the athlete that's better than Usain Bolt.
Right.
So if I can help that person get there, great because it enhances the sport. It enhances our viewing pleasures, right,
Right.
as well.
Yes, definitely. And so I want to ask you this because you mentioned in terms of advancing not just the sport but also the university, and you mentioned, well, paying for student athletes to attend. What's in it? What's the in it for Iowa Community College to want to engage in such rigorous recruitment? Because I know a lot of community college and they're not on the map for recruiting athletes. Is that you show up or you not show up and that's it. It's usually a matter of fact thing. Oh, matter of fact, we have students here who is very good and she's on our team and that's it. But it seems as if it's very purposive in your for the Iowa's mission. What's in it for you guys?
So our President Kenny, and our athletic director, Shane Larson, they are some of the most down to earth people I've ever met. And what's in it is giving people opportunities to be successful.
Okay.
And so they've understood this juggernaut that has been made at Iowa Western, and they've had the community say, yes, we will put funding into adding facilities, whether it be an indoor facility where we can train when it's colder, or a strength and conditioning weight room that supplies our athletes with weight training needs. You're right, that is not at every community college. There's the facilities that we have are better than some Division I universities. And so, it's just about continuing that tradition of success, because the Iowa junior college system as a whole, there are some very, very strong colleges as a whole throughout the junior college system. And we want to be the best. We want to be the best at ping pong, at bowling, at wrestling. It doesn't matter if, we're pushing carts in the parking lot. We want to be the best at it.
Right.
And so along the way, there's a process to all those things. And so it's by getting, experts in those fields to be able to foster the student athletes. So I wish that I had an elaborate answer, but that is it. It's just we want to be the best, and so they're putting funding into it.
And they are putting funding into it. Who? I mean, because of course, I'm not surprised that a college or a university simply just want to, kind of push their humanitarian efforts or advocacy, or just simply, want to help people. Who is funding this? Are you allowed to say, or where is this money coming from? Government,
so it's
private citizens?
Yeah, so it's mostly going to be state funded, institution, and so we don't have the rich alumni base of maybe a millionaire that came back and said, hey, I want to donate a couple $1 million, and then you put my name on a building and everybody benefits from it. We don't have that, but we do have, like I said, the state funding that gives, and we have some individuals over time that have given, and we've named things after them. But at a 2-year university, it's so much harder because most of the funding that those people will accumulate would be at that next 2 years. So when they go to the Harvard or the Alabama or whatever that university is, they're going to give back to that university, and they might cut a smaller check to Iowa Western. We hope. They don't forget the little people.
Right. So this point is interesting, is important to me, because I remember I had the opportunity to talk to a group of community college presidents, and I actually asked that question. The question was, what is their interest, or what is their plan for their their sporting teams? And the first person that responded said, well, we're not interested in that right now. And I was literally shocked. So when I found out that your community college is actually emphasizing sport, I cannot tell you how warm that makes me feel inside, because a lot of times people do not want to consider two-year college as important as you mentioned, like the four-year university, where they rather send their endowment fund, 100% of it versus helping their local community college. So I'm just really happy to hear, what your college is actually doing. Okay,
Yeah,
so
and
go ahead.
no, I was just going to quickly say, and a lot of people they don't realize that some individuals, they're not just coming here because of the grades. It might be because of the finances. It might be a
Right.
better option financially for them to come here and then matriculate to another university. And so that's how we become, more of a better option as well.
Right. So better option. Where are you ranked among your junior colleges in the state of Iowa?
We're at the top. We're at the very top.
Oh, wow.
When it not only in athletics but academically, we're at the top.
And wow.
Yeah,
So you
yeah. I
do
mean,
have then, go ahead, go ahead.
no, we have. So I have several on our team that are 4.0, and so that's why when I first got to the university, I had to realize that not all of the students on our team are academically challenged per se. They have the academics, they just didn't have the financials, or maybe they needed some more time to develop in the sport,
Exactly.
increase their stock, and now they can go out. So we have several student athletes on our team that they'll be able to go to just about any university that they want because they're very talented athletically as well.
Do you find that in terms of your transfer rate, I know you said about 70% you have a 70% success rate, but where are they going? Was the recruiters from those four-year university could be showing up? Do you have like an annual event where you show off your athletes and they just start scooping them up? Tell us about that.
So every day, I'm contacted every single day. Yesterday alone, there were 4 universities that contacted me, wanting to come. Most of them will come to us, but I'm trying to build a relationship to be able to send our athletes to them as well on an official visit to tour the campus to get the experience and see if it's going to be the home for the next 2 years. But we've already had the head coach from the University of Illinois. He was at Georgia and won a national championship with Georgia, and he said, "I want to come visit. I want to come visit one specific athlete." And we said, "Come, let's sit down, and you can sit with this individual." So when I made the announcement yesterday that I was the head coach, I had my inbox was flooding with people that were wanting to meet, and hey, coach, who do you have that's coming out? Who may be coming out mid-year? And again, my job is to place everybody. I know that not everybody will be placed, but my job is to try to place them somewhere. If it's an NAIA school or Division I, Division II, at the best fit as well. Not everybody's going to be fit for Florida. They're just not. I might want to send everybody to Florida, but they're not going to be fit for Florida. And the requirements that they're going to have for it.
Right.
But maybe there's a Montana State or Mankato, Minnesota State Mankato, or whatever the school. I mean, it varies. We have student athletes that matriculated all over the country to, like I said, different levels from last year's team. And now this year's team, we are already being contacted by coaches that, like I said, several Division I universities that want to come in the next 2 or 3 weeks alone to visit campus. And they'll sit down with our team and talk to certain individuals and let them know what their expectations are if they want to come. And so they can kind of get an idea of, okay, man, do I like the vibe that this coach is giving off? Or maybe now after meeting them, I say, yeah, I'm even more interested. So we try to foster those relationships, and that's where my experience comes in play. Having spent so much time at the NCAA level at different universities, I have so many relationships with people I can call and say, hey, I've got somebody for you.
Wonderful. That's really, and that's great, because then it just keeps flowing then, I guess. Every 2 years you're
Yes.
pushing the athletes along this corridor into success, I guess. I have another question
Yes.
for
Yes.
you.
Mhm.
For example, you mentioned, is it Tia and Tina Clayton from Jamaica? They are the up and coming.
Yes.
They're going to be the next Sharika Jackson or Campbell Brown and so on. But there's news
Yes.
reporting that they planning to go pro right out of high school. Now, it's not our decision to
Mhm.
make. We're just forming our opinion, but um, you may have students that get recruited by you into your college, and they become so successful and they feel like, you know what, I'm just going to go pro and immediately leave that 2-year college. They plan to do that. What is your advice or opinion or perspective on a student leaving at high school or even an early college to go pro without having the foundational academic skills?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Again, I have to be an educator. I have to be a conduit to them and say, okay, let's look at the total picture here. What are they, this, is this entity saying they're going to pay for? They might say that they're going to give you a certain amount of money, but then what happens to your education? What happens when you're done running? What do you have to do? Not to fall back on, but to do. What skills have you attained? And so it's harder to be a professional athlete at that age than it is to go through a 2-year or 4-year system,
Mm-hmm.
because all of the individuals that you have to pay, the athletic trainer, the strength and conditioning coach, the training coach,
Mm-hmm.
all those people you have to pay. And then now you have to figure out, how am I getting to meets? Is Nike or Puma or Adidas, are they paying for me to go to these meets, or am I having to go and I just get a kit to
Mm-hmm.
wear? So I talk to the student athletes about those things, and we sift through. And if there's somebody that has that kind of opportunity, we ask the tough questions, and look for the best agent for that individual to help to be the go-between. And so that way, I as a coach can do my job coaching, the athlete can do their job training as well.
Mm-hmm.
And saying too, hey, who's going to train you? I've
Mm-hmm.
been training you for a year or two, and now you're going to go professional. And some companies make you go with certain coaches that have been proven successful.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on the individual. And so, that could lead to a transition period of a year or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You look at maybe a Shakara Richardson, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and her situation might not be because of her flamboyance and things like that. It could be because of the transition that she made from her situation at LSU to leaving to train in Florida with
Oh.
all professionals, all older individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, she could be herself. These
Mm-hmm.
people knew what they were getting with her. And so we look at the picture
Mm-hmm.
5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and march backwards and say, who has the best chance of leading you to an Olympic medal? And
Mm-hmm.
then after that, who has the best chance of providing you with the most money? So that way you're financially stable when you're done running, and then you can go and you can start your professional career in whatever field you academically had. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Fair enough answer. Based on your 16 years of in this business of coaching and recruiting and just being an athlete, based on the ones that you mentored and coach and so on, what's the farthest any of your trainee has gone that you've, I don't know, are you seeing any of them on the world stage?
Yes, I've coached several on the world world stage. I had an Olympian in the 400 hurdles this past Olympics in Tokyo. He also competed in the World Championships in Eugene. He was kind of nursing an injury that we had been dealing with since Tokyo, so we didn't really make a big deal about it. It was going to be his last hurrah, kind of a swan song, and so his country selected him, and so he went to compete. But I've had an Armenian athlete who has the country record holder for the 60 meter and 100 meter, and there's been a few others that, like I said, they've competed for the Nigerian championship or their senior championship or the U.S. Olympic trials, those sorts of things. So there's been several that have gone on, and maybe they've gone professional with Brooks or Nike or Wazel. There's different companies that they've competed for. And at some point, again, they have to make that decision to move on to something else. But there've been quite a few that I've helped develop there.
Okay, very good. So as a coach, I want you to also have the last word in this. What are your greatest concerns for I know we're focusing on mainly track and field. We haven't, mentioned like cricket or soccer or football or table tennis or netball. And does your school recruit for those areas, by the way?
We don't have those specific ones. We do have like wrestling. I mentioned bowling. It's kind of non-traditional sports, but sometimes you could find a great track athlete that is in netball or other sports, soccer. I have found some over the years, because like I said, it's so subjective that most of the time we want to see a specific mark to be able to transfer over. But I think one of my biggest my biggest concerns, and it's even with my own kids, I have a 6-year-old son, is when you look at the specificity of sports at such a young age. Maybe, I'm a track coach and me saying my son is going to be an Olympic track athlete, and I only focus on track. He doesn't play any team sports. He doesn't play any individual sports. He's going to be more likely to be susceptible to whether it's impact injuries or those acute injuries, because he's only moving in certain planes of movement, versus if he's exposed to basketball and soccer and gymnastics and track, not only is he doing individual sports and team sports, but he's moving his body in different planes of movement, and he's challenging his mind in different ways as well. And so I would like to continue to see coaches developing athletes holistically. And they may not have the expertise to say what to eat and what not to eat, but from the nutritional side, but they can at least expose their athlete to different types of training that do correlate to that sport by jumping, throwing, sprinting. It doesn't matter what sport it is, but I would recommend for any sport to do those things, because as children, they do it when they go to the park.
Right.
They jump, run, and they throw. And so, why should we stop when we get to specializing in any specific sport?
We know that it sounds great that you're saying that coaches should, I guess, at the high school level. But let me say this from the little that I've learned about some of the high schools in the US, for example. The focus is more on, it appears, the parents who may have the money to maybe get their child the extra training, versus the focus being on developing the sports, the athletic team within the school. I've attended sporting events where a group of athletes, they're gone from 8 o'clock until 4 o'clock. They sit all day on their phones, just lazing around, nothing. There's no coaching, there's nothing going on, except that they're going to show up and they're going to run one race, and the only attention is on the time that they're going to race. That is not, encouraging.
Right.
So it seems to me then the focus, the parents who probably have the money to get the extracurricular activity and sporting for their student, for their kids, will fare better than those who rely only on the probably the high school program then. What do you say about that?
Yes. No, that is a very, very astute observation, and I would co-sign with that. Normally, the families that have they're more affluent and they can afford to have a private trainer to maybe spend 2 or 3 extra hours a
Right.
day or out of the week doing these other skills. It definitely will lend itself, and so I wish that at that youth development um, level, there
Yeah.
were more people that at that middle school or that first form, they're really developing the students so that way as they matriculate to the older years,
Mhm.
they have the fundamentals and they're, like I said, less prone to injury, but they've been taught
Mhm.
why are we doing certain things? Because even I run into it as a college coach. I have student athletes that say, Coach, your workouts are horrible. We're not doing enough. We're doing
Mhm.
too little. And I
Mhm.
say, well, what do you mean? Would you rather want to do less and stay healthy versus doing more and getting hurt? But that's what they're used to. They're used to working and running miles and laps and all that. And I say,
Right.
well, let's run it correctly and let's do it in a more efficient way. And we build this robust individual. But it's very hard. It's very hard.
Mhm.
And I'd even say that the generation before my generation would say the same with my generation of, no, you guys are different. You guys are just different. And now I'm saying it about the generation under mine. But what happens is we as coaches, we change and we start coaching down
Right.
instead of coaching up.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is when we started this conversation, I said there are individuals that are Olympians and they're those 5-year-old youth athletes that I work with. I treat them the same in terms of their expectation. They want to be good, they want to be great, but they just don't know what to do, how to get there. So it's our job to
Mhm.
help to foster that process
Mhm.
and progress them there. And so we have to, as a whole, as a body, um, as of coaches throughout different athletics, um, in maturing these people, we just have to. We have to.
Agree. So, realistically, yes, we know that not everybody's going to become the athlete. But
Right.
would you also agree that then, I gave you the example of those, community college presidents that I asked that one question to, and they're like, minimize the importance of sports. And then I also observe at the some of the high school level where the same thing is happening. Yes, they send out tons and tons of email about what they're doing, but they're not actually, it doesn't really spell out. They focus more on the bake sale to raise fund, to buy t-shirts versus, and as you
Mm,
said, oh,
right.
run around the laps, run around, do 50 laps versus are you running correctly? And those are some of the most important things.
Mm,
But let me ask you, this is very important to me. This subject is not because I'm an athlete or anything. It's just that in terms of the development of our youth, sport is so important. So what is it that then
mm.
that I should have asked that you're saying, well, she didn't ask me about this. You're the coach. What do you think we didn't cover that is, what we missed on this subject?
The whys. Why do we need to do this? Because again, we all have bias in
Mm-hmm.
terms of I like to train a certain way, but why?
Mm.
Okay. And I go through because it's going to make you more efficient and a more robust athlete and less injury prone. And you say in a way that this individual, they can trust and they can see that you have a maybe not a history, but you have reasoning why you're doing it
Right.
versus this is just what I want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so, because this generation is the why. You know, I see on social media, oh well, a soft pal drags his toe, so I need to drag my toe out of the box too. But why? Or do you need to? And so unlearning those things is
Mm-hmm.
very difficult
Yeah.
because they're seeing a certain thing and they see a result, but they're not correlating that this individual is one of the best athletes in world history. So they had some degree of talent before the toe drag. And so did the toe drag, did it really help or did it hinder? I don't
Mm.
know. And so that's why we ask those whys, you know, hey coach, you like to train a certain way, but why? What kind of success have you seen
Mm-hmm.
in training your athletes this certain way? You know, and how do you quantify the way that you train? Do you
Mm-hmm.
just go based off of time, or is it maybe by saying, oh, okay, this person started at a 21.5 and now they ended at a 20.4? Well, we could say that's a pretty good coaching job because they dropped almost a second.
Mm-hmm.
But could they do that 20.4 multiple times, or was it just the one time?
Mm-hmm.
So that's you know how I would approach it in doing a little deeper dive and saying, you know, okay, well, did it make this person less injury prone and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. The stereotypes. Let's talk about the stereotypes. For example, I cannot tell you, I'm Jamaican, and I remember someone asking me, why do Jamaican run so fast? And that's an actual frequently asked question on Google. And people, even studies, research has been done at many universities. I don't know if you know this. If you look at research that's been done about Jamaican athletes and their Achilles and their ankles and the food and all these type of things about probably on that why question, why do Jamaican run so fast? But do you have to deal with the stereotypes during your recruitment process? People probably like, are Jamaican athletes going to be there, or even Jamaican themselves fulfilling that stereotype, thinking that, well, I'm Jamaican, so I guess I'm just going to run fast.
That is true. I get that a lot. Oh, this person's Jamaican. So we're going to treat them differently because they're from Jamaica.
Right.
Oh, coaches treating me harder because I'm Jamaican versus an athlete that's from the United States. I treat them the same, but also different because my family is Jamaican.
Mm-hmm.
My parents they grew up there, so I look at them and I say, I understand where you came from. And if my parents made it out, you can make it out too.
Mm-hmm.
And make a better life for yourself and education and those sorts of things. But there are a lot of stereotypes. There are a lot of stereotypes that I wish weren't present. Like I said, you have those what we call implicit bias,
Mm-hmm.
and it's you already are thinking a certain way about an individual, but you don't even know them. You're just going off of what you read online. And so what I do as a coach is, again, I try to put my bias aside, and I was contacted by a Jamaican long jumper.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I can't bring him onto the team just because he's Jamaican. I have to see, is he the best fit for our team in the long jump?
Right.
And can he develop in areas as well? Or is there another athlete from another place that can contribute? So it's very tough because you bias, like I said, certain places because you might have a tie or a relationship.
Right.
But my job as the head coach is to, again, just remove that bias and say what's best for our team and the makeup of our team.
David Burnett, thank you so much for this insight into, your life as a coach and just their inspirational thoughts on this subject. I learned so much. This is not my everyday topic. But and I hope that we answer some of the questions that parents who are interested in having their kid in a community college, for example, or even trying to get into Iowa Western, we do answer some questions, and just the qualities that you speak of and the way it is expressed. I'm sure I can imagine being recruited by you. The warmth that is transferred. So thank you so much for speaking on this subject matter. And you have the last word. What is it that you want to share? You have the last word here, David.
Oh, thank you. And I really appreciate this opportunity. And what I really want to say is that I am trying to find the best athlete in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally mean that. And it may not come today, tomorrow, but I'm going to keep looking for somebody that wants to be trained and develop, and they want to do it together.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it on my own. I need somebody that I can train to then look after and say, hey, look at what we did, and let's live a dream of placing you at another university or professional. But we're training individuals for life. I fully recognize the opportunity and of what I have in front of me as a head coach. But it's not just in track and field. We go through life together, ups and downs. And I really want to do that with somebody and have them do it with a bunch of other somebodies.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, man, you know what, we did this together. We're friends for life. We had great memories, and now we can go off and be successful. So I really hope that this message is heard by somebody, and they reach out and say, Coach Burnett, I heard you speak, and I just want to talk to you about the school. And if it's not right for us, maybe I can help it be right for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I truly.
So that's the message. Coach David Burnett is looking for his Usain Bolt, right?
Yes.
Yes, you're looking for a Usain Bolt. And you may have that in 12 years with your 6-year-old, right? Possibly.
Right.
It happens, right? It happens.
It could.
You may possibly find it, but it's a good message to end on. You're looking for your next athlete and the greatest. Hopefully, that one's coming from Jamaica.
Yes.
But kudos to Iowa Western for their program, their top program. I hope other community college copy it and try to see that they can be as robust and get it done. Thank you, David. Appreciate this conversation.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.